Kevin Durant nearly traded by the Phoenix Suns at the deadline, setting us up for a summer, which it now appears Kevin Durant will likely be leaving the desert. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. What an insane trade deadline. And it would have been even crazier had Kevin Durant actually been on the way out of Phoenix. But sounds like we're going to be heading there anyway. Joining me, Donnie Freeman. Donnie, Kevin Durant on the trade market again, looking like we're going to head that way. Latest report that there were talks about a Jimmy Butler, Jonathan Kuminga, and multiple first-round picks plus swaps heading to Phoenix in exchange for Kevin Durant. Would have been a three-team trade involving the Heat and the Warriors. That outcome sounds a lot better for Phoenix than the initial just Butler for Kevin Durant talks that we were hearing about.
Yeah, that makes much more sense. They would have got draft capital. They would have got Kuminga, which is a long-term piece. I would have been okay with that for them personally. And it definitely makes a lot more sense than just the swap that we questioned. You know, we were hearing about Jimmy for KD, and that was just, to me, at best, a lateral move, in my opinion. But yeah, I thought this would have been much more interesting, or it could have been interesting, but interesting that it didn't wind up going down because KD ultimately vetoed this.
Yeah, Kevin Durant did not want to go to the Golden State Warriors. I mean, if you're the Suns and you're thinking you might lose Kevin Durant this summer anyway, this would have been a pretty good return, actually. And again, Butler going from Kevin Durant to Jimmy Butler, that's a downgrade. That is a downgrade. There's no question that's a downgrade. But if you also get Jonathan Kuminga, you get multiple firsts. We didn't see a lot of first move this year. You get multiple first, second round picks, swaps. Like, that's a really good return for the Suns. I wonder if the Suns might actually be a little bit disappointed that this didn't go down, because this would have been a nice return. But speaking of disappointed, Kevin Durant himself was not happy. According to Brian Windhorst, Kevin Durant was not happy he was put into trade talks. I think it's unpredictable what will happen next in the next few months, because that's sports. But I think right now it's reasonable to forecast that Durant will be breaking up with the Suns this summer. So now we've already heard rumors that Trae Young is going to be wanting to leave Atlanta this summer. Now Kevin Durant potentially on his way out of Phoenix. Wow, Donnie, this is setting up for a massive summer for the Suns, where they could very well find themselves fielding Kevin Durant trade talks here.
Yeah, and I bet there's going to be a good number of suitors as well. What does Durant's contract look like? If I remember correctly, he had one more year and then an option, right?
Yeah, and so that's actually going to make this, there's no player option, but that's actually going to make this really tricky for the Suns. He's got one more year under contract. He's extension eligible this summer, but what Kevin Durant can do, because he only has 1 year left, he can tell any incoming team, any team that wants to trade for him, whether or not he actually wants to play there. And if he doesn't want to play there, he can send the message that, hey, I will not re-sign with you. I will not sign an extension with you, and I will leave next summer in 2026. That typically scares away any team, particularly from sending the kind of capital that the Suns would need to move Kevin Durant. So KD, assuming he does indeed hit the trade market this summer, he will very much be able to steer where his landing spot. The Suns, of course, have a say as well, but Kevin Durant will have a major voice in that process because of where his contract is at currently.
Yeah, and with the previous edition that we were just kind of looking at of the trade, it would have had KD going to Golden State. I thought that would have been a good fit, but I could understand why he wouldn't want to go back there. And that was ultimately what we wound up hearing when it got kind of close to being done. KD was like, yeah, I don't want to go to Golden State. And they honored that, right? So that's definitely pretty interesting. But if KD does hit the market, I mean, there would be no shortage of suitors, in my opinion. I think he would, like you said, be able to steer his way, but he's somebody that you can plug and play into any team. And if they need somebody to come in and get buckets and be unguardable, we know KD can do that. So definitely going to be interesting buzz around him.
Oh, even at 36, he is still very much in high demand. This graphic was created showing all the teams that had interest in Kevin Durant ahead of the trade deadline.
Insane.
Look at this list. Look at
That's
this.
crazy.
The Mavs, the Warriors, of course, the Heat,
This
the Rockets, the Grizzlies, the Wolves. They
This is
all
on the
had
heels
interest.
of us like not even knowing he was actually out there, because initially it was like, oh, they're just kind of taking calls, and KD said there was reports saying KD was okay with that, he understood it,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess they got kind of close to completing some of these deals, and KD is
Yeah.
now pissed off about it. Because I mean, 2 hours before the deadline, they were in talks with the Wolves. Like, that's crazy.
That tells you they were really seriously
They were
considering it.
serious.
But you look at Phoenix, if they feel like, hey, we had to, and Phoenix, by the way, big loser at the trade deadline. They traded away that 2031
Mhm.
first, turned it into 3 first-round picks that were not nearly as good, and did it with an eye towards another move coming. That big move didn't come. It did not happen. And so that wound up being, I think, a negative trade for them because it didn't yield them anything else. They saw the standings and went, you know what, we have to do something. We need to change things up. And if that means we need to try to get Jimmy Butler, they could not find a team that wanted Bradley Beal and that Bradley Beal wanted to go to. So the Suns said, fine, we can't sit still. We have to do something. And so they started exploring Kevin Durant trades. Instead, they wound up fairly stagnant, aside from the fairly minor Yusuf Nurkic trade. They wound up pretty stagnant here at the trade deadline. They're the 9th seed in the West. If they continue to struggle, that's going to lead, I think, to a major overhaul from this team. And what a disappointing situation for Phoenix if they don't go on a run here, to go from the Durant, Booker, and Beal era and have it come to an end so soon. Maybe not all that dissimilar from the Durant, Harden, Kyrie era in Brooklyn.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that wasn't that the team that had the Bigfoot KD, just an inch over the
That's
line
right.
or whatever. Oh, that team, that's the ultimate what if team, because if they win, maybe something go a little bit differently. Maybe KD's still in Brooklyn right now. Who knows? But anyway,
Yep.
yeah, definitely pretty true. I think that the crazy thing about Phoenix's situation is the fact that they did all that maneuvering and now they've got to walk it all back, right? Like they've got to. Ramona reported yesterday that the locker room is toxic, basically.
Yeah.
They've got to walk it all back. They've got to introduce Bradley Beal, who there was for weeks and weeks publicly reports that they were trying to get off of his contract. They were trying to figure out a way to get him out of there. They wanted this
Mm-hmm.
dude gone, and he basically said, I'm not leaving. And now you've got to, pick up the pieces from that. There's now potentially fallout, like we're talking about in today's video, about Kevin Durant and the fact he probably legitimately was really close to at least landing on the Warriors for that package earlier. And that would have been an interesting deal, like I said, if that would have happened, but it didn't. And they've got to figure this out, and it's a tough West. And I don't know that, winning cures all. I just don't know that they're going to be able to go on the type of run they would need to go on, right?
And they've pushed back on the concept. They talked about this earlier today. The team has pushed back on the idea that there is, discord in the locker room, that there's any problems there. But I think it still comes down to one thing for me, and that's that you have 3 stars in a league. You're a big 3 build in a league that is actively trying to discourage super teams and trying to discourage big 3s. They are legislating that out of the game. And now it's become so much more critical that if you are going to go that route, you're going to go against the grain. That's fine. That's what Matt Ishbia did, right? The Suns, they said, you know what? We see all these new rules. We don't care. We're flipping the middle finger at the CBA, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to put together a big 3 anyway. We've got that kind of money. We have FU money. That's the way we're going to approach this. And that's what they've done. And that's fine. But I think the rules are actually starting to really catch up to them, because now you can't just put 3 really good players together. Instead, you have to have 3 players that fit. And the Suns have 3 players that all do the same thing as their baseline skill set. And that's putting the ball in the basket. And I think they're paying the price for that. And they're finding how complicated NBA roster building really is. So it wouldn't shock me at all if Kevin Durant is on the move. Something has to change in Phoenix. The preference would be that something is Bradley Beal, but he's got that no trade clause. So he is sitting there on that roster, and they're going to have to change things around him. And that might mean Kevin Durant on his way out of the desert.
Do you think there's anybody that, let's fast forward, right? The team doesn't, worst case scenario, the team doesn't go on the run they need to go on. They obviously don't win the championship as a result. Are we looking at this failure of this team over the last couple of seasons where they've tried to do this stuff, and the failure to they created flexibility, they're able to trade Nurkic, but that's not what they were clearly trying to do when they gave up that valuable pick. Are we looking at Ishbia letting go of James Jones, maybe trying to reposition the team? There was a report that Booker would like to stay on long term.
Yes.
I think maybe getting Kuminga in there would have been a long-term play as well. Are we looking at them maybe trying to position around? And we talk about getting rid of KD, maybe just getting younger and going that route?
Yeah, I think so. And I think Devin Booker is saying, I don't care what happens this summer. Effectively, that's what's out there. Devin Booker saying, whatever happens this summer, I want to be a Sun for my entire career. And frankly, that would be pretty cool, actually. In this day and age, it's rare for players to stick with one team for their entire career. So credit to Devin Booker. I hope he makes that happen. But we could see a significant shift here from the Suns in terms of how they build this roster around Booker. They could definitely go younger. The ideal skill set, like you said, Donnie, would be to build defense, shooting, shot creation to a degree. You need a creating guard to play with Booker, but put those types of pieces around Booker, and then off you go in that situation. Losing Kevin Durant would hurt, though. He's an incredible talent. And in theory, a Durant and Booker duo should work just fine if you have, and more than fine, if you have the right players around them. But because Bradley Beal is sitting on this team, and it's not Bradley Beal's fault at all. The Suns knew exactly what they were getting into when they took on his contract, and the downside of it, not Beal's fault at all, should not be taken out on him, but they're not going to be able to put that roster around those two players that they really should. And so it might require a drastic overhaul and just trying to assemble the right pieces around Booker and then go from there.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with them going forward, but not looking too great over there in Phoenix. But anyways, guys, if you haven't already, make sure you check out our most recent video where we covered the things going on in Dallas and the way that fans are reacting to the new trade. You can click on that right now.